Hi, I'm not a squirrel and this is Mech Armada. In this run we try to beat the game on maximum level difficulty using only one mech at a time. This is final try after many that have failed previously. We are starting with shield, impervious armor and tracks. Those three parts, when upgraded to the maximum, will give us 20 armor, which is exactly the amount we need to beat the final boss. We also start with a machine gun, which is the cheapest weapon available, simply because we couldn't afford anything better. So we first upgrade the impervious armor to get rid of its movement penalty, which is rather unpleasant to have, and we roll for a weapon. Any weapon would be better than what we currently have, but since the first battle we picked was a survival battle, we actually don't need weapon at all. We just need to survive 5 turns, which we will. After upgrading armor once, we will roll for one specific weapon, which is a flamethrower. This weapon will be our weapon of choice for the rest of the run. Mainly because it is the only weapon that hits multiple targets and does not have a cooldown. We did get it quite fast. Our priority will be upgrading flamethrower first, and then the rest of the parts. As you can see, I transform a new weapon in, and we'll get the next fight. At the first stage of the game, we don't really need to worry about anything in particular. The enemies that push us back are annoying, but they can't really harm us at this point. They are the hardest hitting enemies at this stage of the game. They hit for 20 if I remember correctly. Yeah, 10 to 20. But with shield that gives 7 and 3 from the torso part and 2 from the tracks, we don't have anything to worry about. The thing that can actually harm us at the first stage of the game is if we don't kill the enemies fast enough and we get blocked. The pushing ability from tracks helps a bit, but it is not the best solution. So really we need to upgrade flamethrower as fast as we can, and then we will be okay for this part. I don't like running tank mechs because it is quite boring, to be honest. Usually I prefer hit and run tactics, but for this challenge, when I tried to go for either hit and run or range builds, they didn't kill opponents fast enough. So if we could not kill them fast enough, we obviously had to make our mech hard to kill and just have enough time to actually kill things. Another thing that makes flamethrower especially good for this arm is that it kills bosses really fast. For two reasons. First, it hits two spaces, so it deals twice the damage to the boss. Rocket launchers also can hit multiple spaces of the boss, so they also kill bosses quite fast, but they have cooldown. And the second reason is that flamethrowers applies a damage over time debuff into enemies, and since it hits two spaces of the boss, it applies the damage over time twice, so we kill so it deals twice as much burn damage. So we have killed the first boss. It does not really matter which upgrade we pick here. The upgrade we would like to have would be Initiative, which let us move a newly spawned mech, which we will use at 4th stage of the game. We will not spawn new mechs, but transforming a mech counts as him literally spawning a new. So it allows us to make a move, then transform one part and make another move. Second stage of the game is actually quite deceptively hard to beat with just one mech, and there are two reasons. First of all are those evolving alien-like mechs, enemies, because they also do apply damage over time debuff to our mech. And the way shields work in this game is you use an action to raise the shield, and until your mech's next turn they will receive less damage. But the buff from the shield will deactivate right before the damage over time that is applied to this mech applies. So a mech will receive damage over time through shields. And if a mech does not have an armor from any other source than a shield, then it can die from those enemies. Fortunately, Impervious armor, which we are using, does have an armor in itself. It has 3 armor at the start and 6 when we upgrade it to the max, which we need to do in order to survive the second stage. The second thing which killed me on multiple occasions on this second stage of the game were those small flying mantis-like enemies. On some maps we will have a spawning pool or hive of those things that will spawn them on every turn, and while they are weak and can't hurt us, they will eventually be so many of them that we will run out of time to kill them before the fog covers the whole area and kills us. In retrospective, I would not recommend you to start with tracks, and instead I would recommend to go with mini jet, as it is far more mobile and we have enough armor from impervious body and a shield, and I would roll to get tracks before the end of the run, and will probably, and it would be quite easy to obtain this part before the fight with the demon. At this stage of the game we don't really particularly want to fight, we don't prefer to fight any of two bosses of this area. They are equally easy. We will care about which boss we fight at later stage. But for now we just choose a path that gives most upgrade chips, or the one that has most fights that do not require us to kill everything and just lets us win after 5 turns, because they will be fastest to make with this kind of build. We are burning everything to death for now. We actually don't mind the extra weapons, despite we will be using the flamethrower for most of the run. There will come a moment when we will actually use something else. You might also have noticed that I do try to get as much energy as possible, despite that we are not currently using any. This will come in handy at 4th stage of the game, but for now we are just staying and tanking everything while burning our enemies. This strategy might not be available to you at later dates, since I already seen that writing about nerfing the shield is in some way. Okay, so here we get some new upgrade. We don't particularly care about regeneration since we are not taking any damage, so taking some damage improvements will just make fights take less time. As I've said before, we need to find initiative after one boss or another. You can see here I actually am transforming the movement, the transport part of the mech to mini jet. I will need it later especially, but here I considered it, and in the end I just went for it, since enemies in this particular area are really mobile, because most of them can move diagonally. Also in this area we have the spider enemies that can stun a mech, which is normally annoying, but we can play around it with some cheap throwaway mechs or something, but in this run where we have only one mech and we don't want to spam anything beside him, this is actually a death sentence, so that's one reason, another reason why we picked Impervious Bowling at the start, since it is impervious and it does not get debuffs from enemies. So those guys actually can't do anything to us. Another annoying thing about the third stage of the game are those red scorpions, because they have enough armor that the flamethrower don't hurt them as much, and the damage over time debuff actually does nothing to them, which is annoying because it makes killing them that more time consuming. I'm trying to kill the small pink and blue guys last, since they give armor buff to other swarms. But the flamethrower's base damage is actually quite high, and it does not rely as heavy on its damage over time component, so it does kill them fairly quickly, even though they are armored. At this stage of the game, it's actually one only stage of the game at which we will actually care what boss we will face at the end of it. We don't want to fight the Broad Queen, since she summons additional enemies, and after we kill her, we need to also kill everything that she spawned, and we won't. We might not have enough time to do so, so we will pick the scorpions. At this point, we have everything that we actually want upgraded. So the body, the shield, the 2 types of transport parts, and the flamethrower. We will roll for some additional weapons. We want weapons that can deal 6 or more damage without upgrading them, and those that can reach further targets, so with range of 3. This is those are rocket launchers with area of effect. They have 2 range, but the area of effect actually makes it 3, and they all hit for exactly 6 damage. And this would be airstrike, which does have 3 range, and the last is sniper rifle, which does not consistently hit for 6, but pretty much, and we can upgrade it once. This will not hurt as much. The scorpion enemies do start with a lot of armor, so we will not be hitting them as hard at the beginning, but they gradually lose its armor, so we will burn them fast enough with the first one. We actually don't need to kill the bosses first. I actually prefer to kill something and the boss at the same time. No particular reason, I just like burning 2 things instead of 1. And here we have initiative. The reason why we need initiative is exactly this area. As you will see just in a moment, this first fight is actually the most deadly one in the whole run, specifically because of those mist enemies. They have astounding amount of health, so we will not really be able to kill them, and they kill everything they touch. So the armor that we have will actually not protect us, but they do not count into the objective. So we need to kill everything, but we don't need to kill the fox. So here we will use initiative to get more mobility than we actually have. And the reason that why we wanted those weapons that have more reach is because of the octopus-like enemies. They are not too dangerous because they do not attack, but they drain our energy. Usually it is really bad, but we do not need as much energy as normally, but the thing that makes them scary in this run is that they do run from you, and this is bad because in order to kill them we need to move around the map and do not get cornered by the mist enemies. And at some of my previous runs I just got surrounded from all sides by the mist enemies, while the squids went to precisely another part of the map and I couldn't catch them. Part of the reason was that I didn't have jet body and I got body blocked by other enemies and also by the terrain, so the transformation into using jet was specifically because of this terrain and the enemies that are there. But as I said earlier, in retrospect I would just start with it and get the tracks later. As you can see, the mists are not entirely impervious to damage, so it is in theory possible to kill one, but they do have too much health to do it, especially using only one mech. So now, after quickly killing all of the squid guys, we are just mopping up everything else. We do not need to transform as much now, since we are not losing our energy anymore, and the enemies that do run from us are not present anymore. But we will use transformation to again try not to get cornered. The fog does have 2 points of movement, but it can't use its insta-kill action after it have moved. So we actually don't need to run as far away from them, we just need to move one space. And at the end we even managed to finish on a extraction point, so we get some energy back. Here I do consider upgrading an additional weapon, but it is not really necessary, so I just convert these additional upgrade chips into energy. We will not need as much of it anymore, and the amount we had was a bit excessive, but since at this stage we do use it to bolster our mobility, and also because there are enemies that drain it, we still will try to get some of it. At this area we don't really care what boss we will fight, but I will choose the dragon just because I haven't had a chance to fight him just yet. Since most of my previous attempts ended at the first fight of this stage or at second stage. And he was not introduced when I played a while back. So we will go for him. Both the worm and the dragon will not deal enough damage to kill our mech. The shield and the body will give us 17 armor at this point with transport pack that does not give an armor, and there is only one enemy that will hit us for more than 17, and it is the final boss. We don't actually need to kill anything in missions that require us to survive, but we did kill some of the octopuses to prevent excessive energy loss. It's more of a habit at this point, since neither the fog nor the squids will or octopuses will spawn on the final stage. So here I'm just reading what the dragon does because I didn't know it before. We'll transform our mech after a first time just to get more damage from but we need to wait after getting full energy from this node. And we will fire-breathing dragon. We will put ourselves on its side, so when it does push us back, we can get to killing it right away. Those upgrades don't really matter, but we'll pick an armor. So at 34 minutes we are already at the final stage. The enemies here are mostly mix of the enemies that we met at previous stages of the game. Surprisingly, a lot of them are enemies that we had at the first stage of the game. They do hit quite hard. Usually the snail looking ones are really dangerous because they blow up and kill, so we would want usually to kill them from afar, but it does not matter at this point. As you can see, the demon will hit us for 20 damage, so we will want to transform our mech before the end of the turn. I will need to move twice in order to get up to him. So we'll transform twice and start to burn him to death. We technically do not need to get to him the first turn, but he will spawn some additional enemies and it will get they will body block us, so we will get take more time to get to him. Prefer to get him in the first turn, since we have enough energy initiative anyways. We could also use initiative to get
What's that?
to fire
It's spreading out of the demon's body.
more of our weapons. For example, we could switch to two flamethrowers and burn him twice, and then switch to shield. But it is cumbersome.